Controversy is very common nowadays in NASCAR, whether it is on track or off track. But in this episode, I am going to be talking about a title sponsor related topic. The N.R.A. The N.R.A., which stands for the National Rifle Association, is a gun rights advocacy group based in the United States. It was founded in 1871 to advance rifle marksmanship. The modern N.R.A. has become a prominent gun rights lobbying organization while continuing to teach firearms and safety and competency. If I am right, the N.R.A. has been in NASCAR since 2011, sponsoring alongside with the Bass Pro Shop cars and sponsoring the Bristol Night Race alongside with Bass Pro Shop since 2016 with the Bristol Night Race. The N.R.A. has also sponsored the 2012 Atlanta Nationwide Series 300-mile race. It was called the N.R.A. American Warrior 300. However, on March 5th, 2013, it was announced that the N.R.A. would sponsor the Spring Texas race for a one-year deal. This was the first time the N.R.A. group sponsored a NASCAR Cup Series race. The race would be called the N.R.A. 500, which would be the first night race of the 2013 season for the NASCAR Spring Cup Series at Texas Motor Speedway. At the time and during the time, the controversial sponsored race was stirred due to the time when Congress were hotly debating gun control legislation after the Sandy Hook school shooting that took place on December 14, 2012 in Newton, Connecticut. And of course, when it came to gun-related topics, there's going to be various opinions.
Tell me why this is a good idea. See, I'm slightly baffled that you can't have a tobacco company sponsoring this race, because presumably it's deemed bad for Americans' health. But you can have now the N.R.A., which is basically funded by gun manufacturers.
Well, first of all, tell me what's bad about it. I mean, Texans love guns. Texans love fast cars. There is nothing wrong with NASCAR, and they have been involved with the N.R.A. before. This is the first time the N.R.A. has stepped up to the Sprint Cup Series, which is the top league. But there's nothing wrong with this, Pierce. I mean, I really don't understand anyone who would want to argue with the Bill of Rights, the First Amendment and the Second Amendment. They kind of go together well here. So I really don't understand the fuss. Tell me what your problem is. I don't get it.
My only problem is I can't understand the difference between a tobacco company not being allowed to sponsor this race because it's deemed bad for American health, and yet a gun company, effectively what the N.R.A. is, which is funded almost predominantly now by gun manufacturers, is using this to sell more guns. I just can't imagine that guns are better for American health than tobacco.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm not going to argue tobacco over guns, but the N.R.A., I think, is not trying to sell guns, and they are supported by, I'm a lifetime N.R.A. member myself, so they're supported by mostly citizens as well as gun manufacturers. But this is really making a statement about who we are. I know there was a car in a race recently devoted to Sandy Hook, and I think that's a great thing. That I think it was Darrell Waltrip Jr. possibly who drove that car. I'm not sure of the driver. That's a wonderful thing. And in Texas, we can support and help and pray for the people who have been victims to gun crimes in our own state and in other states. But here in Texas, we understand that the N.R.A. is something that we can be proud to be a member of. Let me tell you something, Piers. When you were here, and I enjoyed meeting you a few weeks ago when you were here in Texas, today, and I sit on finance and I sit on criminal justice, we are closing down prisons in Texas. Crime is down. People carrying guns in Texas, concealed carry, which we talked about on your last show, has a positive impact. I can assure you in Chicago, where they have tight gun laws, they're not closing down jails. They're opening up jails. But in Texas, we actually have 12,000 beds now that are freed up because crime is down in Texas. So fast cars, guns, Texas, it all works together. We're proud to be Americans. We're proud of the First and Second Amendment, and we will reach out, pray for, and help the families of victims of crime anywhere.
Demographically, it's a great fit. Any product that you have as a sponsor, you look to see, is it going to match up? And this one certainly does.
We're going to be debating a background checks bill next week that is supported by 90% of the American public, but the N.R.A. opposes it. And when NASCAR fans turn on the TV this weekend, it's going to seem to them like NASCAR and the N.R.A. are in bed, not just on this race, but on the N.R.A.'s agenda as well.
Do you see an issue with the timing and how that may look to some people, regardless of what the actual events were and leading up to the decision about the sponsorship?
Right. You know, I certainly am sensitive to the fact that the tragedy in Newtown occurred in early December. But I can tell you that we've received fewer than a dozen cards, letters, and emails from around the country.
NASCAR did commemorate the Newtown tragedy with a specially painted car. It ran at the Daytona 500 in February and asked fans to text donations to a Sandy Hook fund.
This frankly cancels it all out. I mean, they did some nice things for us, but by essentially, throwing sand in the face of Newtown families by aligning themselves with the group that's trying to stop gun violence legislation from being passed, it really cancels out all the good stuff that they did. NASCAR and Fox should have been a little bit more sensitive to the families in the community of Newtown and stayed out of this debate. They could have found another sponsor for this race. They could have waited until after the debate to have the N.R.A. sponsor a race. It's just really, really poor timing. It gives the impression that Fox and NASCAR are endorsing the N.R.A.'s position.
The American public is not engaged in this, but the senator keeps trying to stir it up, and I can appreciate that. But he's in Connecticut, we're in Texas, and his values don't fly here.
The NRA has every right to sponsor a race or sponsor an event in any state that they see fit.
Do you think this race is about sports or politics? How would you describe this race?
It's sports. I believe it's all about sports.
Sean, you talk about the attacks on the Second Amendment. There's even politicians calling for Fox not to run the NRA 500 on Fox TV.
Yeah, I heard about
and it's amazing.
No, well, that's staggering. I mean, come on. I mean, have we entered into such a PC era that we can't? I mean, the fact of the matter is, it's the Second Amendment that keeps all the other ones in place, and people have to recognize that. You take away the second, and I got news for you: the government or absolutely anybody, who wants to, can move around freely, and that is not what this country was founded on. Fact of the matter is, our founding fathers wanted us policing ourselves, and this is supposed to be a government of the people, by the people, and we are sadly drifting away from that. And I've got, again, it is completely mind-boggling that we are even having this debate. The NRA 500, NASCAR, we are showing it. It is coming on Fox. So anybody out there doesn't like it, I got news for you. It's coming whether you like it or not. Turn the channel because we're going to be racing and shooting all night.
It's family-friendly TV, but I know you do have 2 words for them, but we'll keep that off. We'll keep that off camera.
So yeah, as expected, everyone's views are different about this. It was so controversial that Fox was threatened by Democratic Senator of Connecticut Chris Murphy to not show the race on the main channel. Fox wanted to do it anyway. Former Texas Motor Speedway president Eddie Gossage defended the N.R.A. saying that it was not about politics, it was about sports marketing. Gossage also kept the 6-shooter victory lane celebration when a driver wins the Texas races. To be fair, it was a perfect sponsor for a track and race like Texas, a match made in heaven for those fans. That's just how I truly feel, because, Texas, yeehaw. Anyway, Clint Boyer ran a Gander Mountains car. On the hood, it says, quote, "With rights come responsibility and secure your firearms," end quote. After all the commotion and controversy, the race went on anyway. However, I believe Fox would have to limit their showings of the NRA logos, and there was also no NRA or gun-related commercials itself. As for the race itself, Kurt Busch and Kyle Busch shared the front row for the race. The biggest news of the race was Penske Racing's Brad Keselowski and Joey Logano failing pre-race inspections due to rear-ending housing. Bobby Labonte was battling with a stomach flu. On lap 39, the first caution was out for debris. On lap 44, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Austin Dillon crashed at the backstretch, entering turn 3. The next 2 cautions came out on lap 82 for oil on track and lap 151 due to debris. On lap 224, David Ruderman threw the yellow. On lap 282, Jeff Byrne and Marcus Ambrose crashed at the back straightaway. Martin Truex Jr. was looking for his long-awaited second career Cup Series win. He was one of the most dominant drivers out there that night. Unfortunately, caution came out on lap 315 due to debris. At the last restart, Kyle Busch, the dominant driver of the race, would win at Texas and would sweep the weekend after winning the Nationwide Series race the night before. Kyle Busch led 171 laps, and Martin Truex Jr. led 142 laps. I'm not sure this was during the race or after the race, but at 10:30, a 42-year-old fan named Kirk Franklin got into an argument with another camper at the infield backstretch. After the commotion, Franklin ended up committing suicide. Some say that alcohol might have been a factor. Yeah, that was the last episode I covered. So yeah. This story has honestly been interesting to say the least. All I remember was watching the race like normal. I remember the Penske Racing issue, Barbara Labonte having stomach issues, the crashes, Jeff Gordon going behind the wall. I remember rooting for Martin Truex Jr. to finally win his second career Cup win, but that never happened. I remember the race like normal, but I never heard anything about the controversy off track before the Texas race at that time. Keep in mind, I was only 12 years old. I guess that somewhat makes sense. Before I state my opinions about this controversy, I want to let y'all know a couple of things. Number one, I do not support both political parties. I am not a Republican or a Democrat. I am not conservative or liberal. Republicans and Democrats are both terrible and they are ruining this country. They're all selfish and always whine and cry and fight about the stupidest shit. They are both toxic and awful. Both sides mean nothing to this country. That's all. I know I'm going off topic, but I just wanted to say something about that before I get accused of being called a Democrat liberal. You know how people are nowadays. Come on. Don't blame me. Anyway, number two, let's be civil in the comments and not be a bunch of assholes and babies. Let's be respectful in the comments. Number three, if there was anything I had missed, please feel free to tell me in the comments below. A lot of help would be appreciated. Thank you. In my opinion, the N.R.A. wanted to support the Texas Spring Race after Samsung stopped sponsoring the Spring Texas Race. The N.R.A. group is not a political group. It is just a bunch of people who love guns. I got none against guns if they're used smart and not stupid and evil. In my opinion, they were just sponsoring a cup race in 2013. Was it a bad time to do that after the Sandy Hook shooting? I'm not sure. That's debatable. So after 2013, Duck Commander sponsored the 2014 Texas Spring Cup race for a 3-year deal. Deja vu, the Duck Commander 500 name was once again controversial. Oh, Duck, here we go again. But I'm not going to talk about that. So I do apologize if this episode of Racing Stories is not the best. I do not know too much about guns and all that. I do not own a gun, so yeah. I did this episode because it is one of NASCAR's most forgotten controversial moments. To be honest, I don't blame anybody for forgetting about it. Nowadays, due to NASCAR's poor stupidity, poor management, and horrible officiation, well, from 2021 mainly, come on. It is common to have controversy in NASCAR on or off track nowadays. It's sad to say, but it's actually true, so yeah. Anyway, with that being said, I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Racing Stories. Comment, like, and subscribe for more content and for more Racing Stories. Thank you guys so much for supporting E Nation. This is Ian Perez 48 signing off. Goodbye, everybody.